to the 10 Woloshyn podcast.
Welcome once again to another edition of the Ted Woloshyn podcast. Thanks very much for taking the time to join us. We do appreciate that. 2026 marks the 90th anniversary of the birth of one of Canada's most patriotic and prolific singer-songwriters, Stompin Tom Connors. He recorded 4 dozen albums, wrote more than 300 songs, one of which considered by many as Canada's second anthem. It's the hockey song.
Hello out there, we're on the air, it's hockey night tonight. Tension grows, the whistle blows, and the puck goes down the ice. The goalie jumps and the players bump and the fans all go insane. Someone roars, Bobby scores at the good old hockey game. Oh, the good old hockey game is the best game you can name. And the best game you can name is the good old hockey game. Second period.
Joining me today, Duncan Fremlin. He is author of My Good Times with Stompin Tom. He's also the frontman for the band Whiskey Jack, who played and recorded with the late Stompin Tom until his passing in 2013. Duncan Fremlin, it's good to see you, sir. How you been?
Very good, thank you, Ted. It's good to see you. I'm glad to see we're both vertical and
yes,
continuing to.
Well, eventually, we'll just be doing this lying down. It's like, I don't know if you ever saw the old SCTV episode where Eugene Levy was doing a parody of Perry Como, and in different stages, and eventually it's Perry Como lying on a couch with a blanket over him, singing, I like the boogie. Yeah, exactly. And that's what I sort of envision us somewhere down the road. But for now, we are vertical and we are fairly lucid.
Really?
At least enough to pull this off. This has got to be the longest name for a tour that I've ever read in my life. 2026 Canada Believe in Your Country Tour. Whiskey Jack presents stories and songs of Stompin Tom with special guest Sean Cullen.
No, that's not even half of it, Ted. That's no. It's been the worst marketing adventure I've been on because as you know, if you can describe what you're doing in 2 words or 1 word, you're winning.
Yeah.
And I have 2 things going. I should have called it the Twofer Tour, and the 2 things are Stompin Tom is turning 90, so some of the shows, the theaters are asking us to use that as the banner. Other theaters are a little more adventurous, and they're saying no. We want a Canada's Not For Sale banner. So, and we've been doing both shows. So it's been a struggle to find a good moniker for this tour. So thanks for pointing that out. I appreciate that, Ted.
Yeah, well, I thought about how do I write this into the introduction. I thought I can't write this into the introduction. It's way too difficult. But it's an admirable achievement. And I say achievement because the tour has already begun, so you've already done a number of shows, and the tour continues because it is a salute to, as I mentioned in my introduction, one of the most prolific and patriotic Canadian singer-songwriters of all time, not just of our time, but of all time. And let's go back to first a little bit of background on Stompin Tom for those people who are not from this country and maybe don't know who he is. Stompin Tom was born in St. John back in 90 years ago. Yes. How did he become Stompin Tom? I'm not talking about the name because we'll get to that. That's a great story on its own. We'll get somebody else to tell that story. I think you know what I'm talking about. But how did he become the musician that he became?
Well, first of all, it's impossible to describe. It's a big life, impossible to describe in a few words. But I will say that what I know about him is what drove him, or what helped define this man who is going to be a great man, regardless of whether he was in music or whatever, was his principles. He had clear idea of what he wanted in life. He had some incredibly strong intellectual skills. He had a memory like nobody else. He was a learned man, even though I don't even think he got beyond grade 8. He educated himself. That should tell you pretty much everything you need to know about this fellow, and all the things that happened to him between him being born in St. John and today really came from those principles that he had, and this as fervent patriotism. Again, can you think? Can you think of another Canadian that has been so boldly and unapologetically Canadian as Stompin Tom Connors?
Musician?
No, just in general. I mean, he laid it on the line. He really, I love this story, Ted. He got out. He turned his back on the business out of principle because he thought the Canadian entertainers were not getting the proper respect that they were getting. This was, I don't know the exact years. It's in the 70s. So this was in the prime of his career. He was on the way up. He had a national TV show. He had hit records. He was known nationally and was about to earn more money than this poor man from New Brunswick would ever earn in his life. And he walked away from the industry for 13 years out of principle alone. That cost him millions of dollars. I don't think there's any question about that. And that kind of patriotism, it's been sorely lacking. And I can't think of anybody else who would give up that for his country, for the principles that he believed in.
Yeah, no, that's true. And you met, actually, without meeting, he saw you, I guess, performing on television on CBC, and thought, well, I like these guys. And was that the impetus that brought him out of retirement?
It was a piece of it. There was a series of incidences. No, I had nothing to do with him coming out of retirement. My introduction to him, he was already committed to a tour in 1990 by the time I came along. And my first gig with Tom was really working for the promoter who was producing this 75-city, 6-month cross-country grueling torture of every town, village you think about it. How many? First of all, 75 shows. I don't know how many cities have we got.
I'm just trying to think. I mean, every major city plus these 2-3 minor cities around the major cities. Yeah, for sure.
No, we're talking small towns, and so he committed to this. And my job in 1990, when I came on board, was to manage the tour, to make sure that the whole thing was running smoothly, so that Tom wouldn't come back and yell and scream at the promoter and the producer who wasn't on the tour. So I was on the tour. So I got to know him in kind of a backdoor way. And I always think, in a way, I was a fly on the wall because I wasn't working for him that time. I started working for him a year or two later. But at that time, I was working for somebody else. So he couldn't yell at me or treat me the way he would normally treat an employee. And I think my perspective on this was pretty unique, and I learned, well, I think what it did, Ted, was that when he did call me to bring Whiskey Jack, my band, into the studio and tour with him, I was in a position to really warn my bandmates before they even committed what was going to happen, because he was a tough man to work for. There were rules, Ted. And musicians don't do well with rules, in case you didn't know.
I remember you telling me when I had you on my radio program, we discussed your book, which you'd written, which I'd mentioned in the intro. And you said that one of the things that he was dead set against was marijuana.
He said, one seed and you're off the tour. So I have a subsequent story to that. Can I tell this?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So also on the tour with us was his pal from his era, the great Graham Townsend, probably the best fiddle player. Well, not probably. He was the best fiddle player Canada has ever produced. And so Graham was part of the backup band with Whiskey Jack. And so we'd come on, we'd do our set. Graham would come on, we'd do a few songs with Graham. Tom would come on, and we all play together. So we got to know Graham pretty well. And he often rode with Tom in the Suburban. Tom drove the Suburban. The band had the flotilla behind him. So, but but we had our nice big chunk of hash on this tour, but we made sure that it was consumed in the van, not, around him. So one day, I think it was in Halifax, I had a meeting with Tom, and I come out of the room, and I'm looking for everybody, just to hang out and stuff, and I couldn't find anybody. Nobody was answering the door or anything. So I got on the phone, and I phoned one of the rooms. I phoned Graham's room. And he answers, and he said, "Oh, the band's here." So I go into their room, and there's Graham token up in this nice big chunk of black hash. And he had come to the other side, because up until then he had been on Tom's side. And now all of a sudden we're all stoned, and Tom, he's drinking his beer in his room all by himself, which he did not like at all. He didn't like being by himself. So,
right.
One seat and you're off the tour. Well, he would have had to fire all of us that day.
Yeah. Do you think, because he passed in 2013, and here we are 13 years later now, do you think he would have changed his mind once when he saw that it was legalized and that it's so commonplace now that it's like, it's like walking into somebody's house and seeing a bottle of wine on the table. You think, yeah, big deal.
I don't think so. I must confess that in 2018, when we were about to legalize marijuana, for that year, I sang every show. I didn't sing Bud the Spud. I sang Spud the Bud from the BC Mud. So I rewrote the lyrics, and I sang it.
That's funny.
I sang it every show for 2018, including Skinner's Pond, July 1st, 2018, in front of, this was the Holy Land for Stompin Tom. So
Right.
in front of all of the family and friends. And so finally, at the end of the tour, we're at Maple Leaf Gardens. They're honoring the hockey song as being part of the, I think, Songwriters Hockey Hall of Fame. It's in the Hockey Hall of Fame. The hockey song.
As it should be.
Yes, and so I'm in the booth. The record company had a big booth, and so I'm in the booth, and Tom's wife, Lena, comes up to me, and she kind of whispers in my ear, very respectful, like just she's a doll, and she's been very supportive of what we're doing. She whispered in my ear, she said, "Dunk, do you think you could not sing that song anymore?" So I stopped singing it, but
No.
You're right. It got a lot of attention. Spud the Bud from the BC Mud.
From the bright red mud, rolling down the highway smiling. The Buds are big on the back of Bud's rig. They're from Prince Edward Island. They're from Prince Edward Island. Down from Charlottetown, down to Summerside. They load him down for the big long ride. He's up in the cab and he's off with the prides of Vegas. Gotta catch a boat to make Tormentine as he heads up on that old New Brunswick line.
So I had verses for all of this, but
Yeah. 300 plus songs he wrote. You had mentioned a moment ago that he had a great memory, and I'm thinking, God, he must have had a great memory, because how could you remember everything that you've written? I often wonder about people like, when they get up to McCartney will do a 3-hour show, or Springsteen will do a 3-hour show. And I wonder, how do you remember the lyrics to all these? And I guess it's just so repetition that does it, right?
I heard McCartney say one time that one of the most stressful parts of anticipating a show for him was whether he was going to remember the lyrics or not. In Tom's case, he used to brag that he knew the lyrics to 1,000 songs. And I don't doubt it, because I've heard him around a campfire spend an entire night just singing train songs. So I knew he had an amazing memory. But the one story I remember, we're in Calgary, and he used to customize the set list depending on where we were. So he had written a song called Okanagan Okie, and we weren't in the Okanagan, but we were close enough. We were in Calgary.
Well, yeah,
so
just one couple of provinces away.
So he went to start the song, and I've incorporated this clip because I recorded it at the time. He went to start the song, and he couldn't quite get the beginning of it. And so he stopped in the middle of the show, and he came back and he asked the band members, what's the first word in the first line in the song? So I gave him the first line, but it wasn't the line that he needed. He had started the song in the wrong key. And once once we got the right key, then it was there. So it's funny how the brain works. You've got the lyrics, but it's got to go along with the story or the sound behind the lyrics that you're used to. So, yeah, he was what an amazing memory that guy had. Unbelievable.
What was the idea of celebrating Tom's 90th birthday? Did that come before the idea of doing a Believe in Your Country, Canada Believe in Your Country tour?
We did an 80th birthday for him at Hughes Room, and at the time, the Right Honorable Adrienne Clarkson she was kind of a partner with me in this show because she had been a good friend of the family, and I had brought her on board a year or so before, and so she was helping me promote the show and sort of get the word out. So we were planning a big 80th birthday, she and I, and so she was trying to come up with names of people that would be on stage with us. And she kept, Rufus Wainwright, yeah, that'd be good. Katie Lang, oh yeah, how about that? And then she said, well, how about Gordon Lightfoot? I said, oh, okay, if you have to get Gordon, okay.
Yeah.
So she did. She got Gordon to come out on the 80th. So he got up and said a few words and sang some songs. And it's on that, and performance is on my YouTube channel, actually. And so for the 90th, it seemed clear, that we would have to do something special. And so I've been planning this for 2 years, and it turns out that the Horseshoe Tavern, they were pretty keen on being part of this, since they are as married to Stompin Tom as Gate Lapine or as I am, or as the family, really.
I had mentioned in the intro as well at the outset of this interview that I referred to Tom as one of Canada's most prolific and patriotic writers, because originally I'd written it, I thought Canada's most prolific. Then I went, wait a minute, Gordon Lightfoot's face popped into my mind and went, you idiot. Gordon Lightfoot, hello. How many albums and records did he write?
And he stayed in Canada, Ted.
And another great patriot. Did he and Tom have a good relationship, any kind of relationship at all?
Gord told that story at the Hughes Room show 10 years ago. And the story was that Gord had been on the wagon for 22 years or something leading up to that. And Tom invited him up to the house one afternoon. And at the end of that, he wasn't on the wagon anymore. And so Gord told that story. And I can't repeat it word for word, but there's obviously an immense amount of mutual respect there which really felt good. It felt good for me because I think there still is probably a large segment of the entertainment industry that doesn't give Tom the respect that he deserves. And I've been living with his catalog. We've been singing, Whiskey Jack's been singing these songs for 45 years, but it's only in the last 12, 13 years that I've really immersed myself in this catalog. And I've discovered that this is not a man who just writes about a tomato loving a potato or a bud to spud. This was a man who had musical and poetic skills that I think in the years to come, Ted, I think in the decades to come, the country will begin to appreciate exactly the genius behind this musical person.
I think that's a good point. And I think it's worth noting as well that although he may not have had the success that Lightfoot did, his music appeals to as large a demographic as humanly possible, because his lyrics are, in many cases, fairly simplistic, easy to wrap your head around, easy to sing along to the point where, like, young kids would love to sing Bud the Spud, and I'm sure thousands of kids every day in this country during hockey season sing the hockey song. Whereas Lightfoot, I don't think a lot of kids are singing The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald when they're 11 years old. You know what I mean?
No. That's demonstrated in the fact that Tom had a kids album. Mm-hmm. They released a book, and his record company they sell a book, I think, online of the hockey song, and there's cartoon characters. There's Margot's Cargo, which was done as a cartoon No, you're absolutely right. It's you think of some of the lines. It's almost Dr. Seuss like. You never had a pot.
Yes,
You
yes.
never had a pot for the fish that he caught, so he had to use the Big Dipper. Come on, man. I mean, Margaret Atwood. With all due respect to Margaret Atwood, she would never have written that line. But that's a brilliant line.
Absolutely, and when I said that, I said that with the deepest of respect for Tom and his ability, because there's not a lot of entertainers, there's not a lot of people in general who can reach that wide of a swath of people, that kind of a demographic. So that's quite an amazing thing. Let me just, I'm going to toss a line at you, and I'm just going to let you go with it. Okay, this is a quote. This is a quote from Tom Connors. If you don't believe your country should come before yourself, you can better serve your country by living somewhere else.
I heard that line for the first time. It was in 1991 or 1992. It was the very first time I was in the recording studio with Tom. He called me in and asked me to be on his new album that he had written with his partner Gate Lapine. Believe in Your Country was the name of the album. And so you'll love this story, Take us. I'm standing in the studio, banjo over my shoulder, and to my right is the great Walter Ostanek, accordion over his shoulder.
Multi-Grammy Award winning, we should point that out. I think he's won like 8 Grammy Awards. I'm sorry to interject.
Who was a good friend of Tom's. Such a great, what a great man this guy is. Anyway, we're standing there. We got the headphones on. Tom's in the booth. He's talking to us and he says, okay, here's my new song. I want you to, if you hear a part that you think you can add your part. So the first run through, we just listened to it the first time. So Walter and I are standing there. It's the first time we hear that line. Now, you have to appreciate, your listeners have to appreciate the lead up to that, which was the free trade division. The country was very divided, as you remember, which is kind of timely given what we're happening right now. But the free trade. So you had some who were pro-American. They wanted to become part of America. They wanted to move down there. Others were more, no, we can't let our income, we can't let the money flow north-south. We have to keep more of it flowing east-west. So Tom was on the east-west side of the argument. And then there was the Meech Lake conversation, Mulroney's attempt to you get Quebec on board for that. So that was the foundation behind all of this. And there was all this stuff going on in the news. And Tom had already been on tour once with this cross-country tour, talking about how much he hated Mulroney and the free trade agreement and all that. So when Walter and I first heard this line, I remember we looked at each other and we had that, well, the old man's lost it now kind of look on our face. We thought that's going a bit too far, Tom. But then now, it's part of my show now, Ted. It's like I sing that line. In fact, I've written a couple of extra verses about Gretzky and Bobby Orr being pro-Trump. And so I've made some reference to, I've modernized it a little bit, but the theme, the tone, it's still there. I mean, the sentiment is still there.
Ted Woloshyn returns in a moment.
I've had the great fortune to say that I've been associated with one of Toronto's finest names in men's clothing for more than 25 years. Tom's Place. Founded by Tom Mahalick's father in 1958, Tom's Place offers brand name men's apparel at unbeatable prices. But more than that, they boast a long-serving, knowledgeable, and friendly staff that can assist you whether you're looking for casual or formal attire. And they have plenty of first-class tailors on site. In addition, Tom and his family are well known for their philanthropic work. So if you're looking to deal with great people who can fulfill your clothing desires at outstanding prices, do yourself a favor and visit Tom's Place. They're open weekdays from 11 to 6, Saturdays 10 to 5, and Sundays noon to 5. You'll find Tom's Place at 190 Baldwin in the heart of Kensington Market. Or check them out online at toms-place.com. Tom's Place will suit you.
Now back to Ted Woloshyn.
So 4 years ago, January 1 year ago, I should say, January 2025, the day after inauguration, things started changing in terms of our relationship with the United States to the point where, well, it's just all hell just kind of broke loose, seemingly overnight, but it wasn't overnight.
Yeah.
Was that the beginning of the birth of the Believe in Your Country tour?
Yeah.
Was it the man from down under who was lit the match, as it were?
I think the two people that benefited the most from this is Carney and me, because our phone started ringing right off the bat. I got a call from one of our maybe our favorite club in Canada, the Cameron House, and Telly asked if we would do it. Well, if we would come and sing. He didn't say specifically Believe in Your Country. In fact, the very first show I did at the Cameron, which was the February, I believe, I called it Say No to the 51st State. And I've never experienced a moment. I mean, I've stood on Parliament Hill with Tom on July 1st and heard everybody sing along with him, and hundreds of thousands of people in front of the Parliament buildings. And that was a thrill. But to stand in this room at the Cameron House after this, just keep in mind, it's only a few weeks old, this 51st state threat. Everyone's nerves is on edge. We're tense about the future, and we're determined that. So that night, the room was just alive. It was powerful. And then the next day, I get a call from the Horseshoe. Would you come and do a show in April and call it Canada's Not for Sale? And that was really the beginning. Again, another emotionally powerful. I've never experienced patriotism on that level before. And on February 9th, 2026, we're going to do it again at the Horseshoe.
Sean Cullen, one of this country's great comedic talents. I last saw him perform when he in the Toronto production of The Producers, the brilliant Mel Brooks Broadway president, award-winning Broadway show and motion picture as well, is the MC for your shows. How did that come about?
Well, I know Sean because here's another connection. I belong to a hockey team. It's kind of a charity fun team called the Jokers. We're a series of comedians, actors, musicians, Tyler Stewart, Sean Cullen, and are on the team. So when I had my very first celebration after Tom died, which was the Eaton Tavern on the Danforth, I had just asked Sean if he'd come and participate, and he did. I had a whole list of stars show up at this thing, Ted. It was another one of those, I just had this idea, and next thing you know, it became bigger than life almost. But so right off, and plus Tom Jr. was on the Jokers, so we knew Sean knew Tom Jr., great hockey player, by the way, has a little bit like Peter Mahovlich, tall, lanky. You didn't know what he was going to do next. Tom Jr. is a great player. Anyway, so Sean already knew Tom Jr., who was in the audience that night, and the family. So, and then, small world, you probably know John Miller, was the artistic director at the Stratford Summer Music. He had something to do with...
I don't know.
Okay, but anyway, he's a mover and shaker, has been for decades. He was in the audience at the Eaton House, of all places, and he calls me up a few days later and says, would you bring the show to Stratford Summer Music? Well, I said, sure, but the problem was, Ted, I never really had a show. I had just put together this thing for the Eaton House thinking it was just a one-of. And that was 12, 13 years ago, and here we are still doing it. So crazy, eh? So that's how that happened.
Yeah. So he's there for every performance that there's just limited performances.
90% of them. I think there's one that he's not for scheduling purposes, but most of them he's there. And he's an MC. He's a great songwriter. He's going to sing one or two of his songs. He's a great interpreter of Stompin Tom. So William Shatner sings Stompin Tom. That's part of our show. Sean does William Shatner singing Stompin Tom.
William Shatner actually recorded an album. You know that?
Oh, I know, it's really bad. I heard somebody.
Well, I mean, I don't even would it even classify as music? I'm not sure. It's kind of spoken word music,
right,
I suppose. because of because of what the words that have been spoken by President Trump over the last year, and the effect that it has had on Canadian patriotism, has that brought a younger demographic to your shows than in previous years?
It has. It has. First of all, the Cameron House and the Horseshoe that's Queen Street West. This is the alternative lifestyle community in Toronto.
Yeah, it's kind of changed now. It's a little bit more corporate than it once was, but that's another story.
There's still a large contingent.
The Horseshoe is still the hip place.
Yeah, well, and the Cameron, like I say, you go to the Cameron for the 6 o'clock show, the 9 o'clock show, or the 12 o'clock. Anyway, they all came and supported the two shows that we did earlier in the year, and I expect and they are a demographic. Some of them know Tom, but there's quite a few that have no idea who the hell he is. So they've come on board. So yes, the answer is yes. We're starting to attract a younger demographic.
This show obviously won't tour in the States, but there are people. But we're not getting. There's certainly not as many Canadians going to the United States for recreational purposes as there was in the past number of years. But the amount of Americans, there's still a fair amount of Americans coming up here, and I'm thinking, when there are Americans in the audience, do you ever get a chance to talk to them after the show and find out what their feelings are, A, regarding the show, and B, regarding the situation between our two countries?
All I know for sure is throughout the summer, we do provincial parks. We do 10 provincial parks throughout the summer. And each show, I ask in the park whether there's anybody from out of province there. And in 2025, all the shows we did, the answer was no. There were no Americans in camping. There were no people from, it was very unusual, because usually there's a few of either people from Manitoba or Vancouver or New York or whatever. In 2025, there were none. I'd be very surprised if there are any Americans at any of my shows this year in 2026. As you say, there are fewer of them around, and certainly they would have no idea who Stompin Tom was. But we did tour in the States back in the early 80s and sang some of these songs, and they were attracted to the playfulness in Bud the Spud and Sudbury Sardine. They were attracted to the language of the song, even though they would come up to us and say, what's a Bud the Spud? They didn't know what that was, but they liked the song, and we had some popularity down there because of that. But it's really this is a Canadian act, Ted. It's a Canadian angle on the music. It's Canadian humor, which is not humor that the Americans always embrace.
No, true enough, but there are a lot of border towns where there's a real close proximity. The people in the Niagara region and Fort Erie and bordering on Buffalo, there's still maybe not with Tom's music, but I mean,
I was born and raised in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, and we played hockey in the States. The back and forth between Sault, Ontario and Sault, Michigan was pretty common. I went to university there, and I never ever felt that anybody I met there really either cared about what we were doing on our side of the border or had any level of understanding or made any, other than the ones who cross-married. But for the most part, I don't agree with you. I think for the most part, they're in their world. I'm
not going to argue with that. I mean, I realize that we know 10 times more about their country than they do about ours. There's no denying that, and I think that many Americans would even admit that. The ones who know would realize that. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that for those people from south of the border, I was hoping that maybe you had run into somebody who did see the show and had some comments or thoughts on it. But if you didn't, you didn't. I mean, it's just asking you a question. I'm not. We're not in a debate here, Duncan. This is just a.
No, I get pretty militant about this stuff.
No, that's fine.
I was thinking today, Ted, that I drank the Stompin Tom Kool-Aid, so I've got this patriotism thing. Like I'm completely covered in it, and I learned. I say from the stage that Tom gave me permission to be patriotic, because you got to remember. You're old. I mean, we're all old enough to remember. There was a long time when Canadians were not allowed. We never waved our flag. We didn't. Our idea of Canada Day was not to wave the flag. We were just to have a good time. It's changed. There's no doubt about that.
For sure it has, and it was one of the things I recall growing up thinking, because we had family in the United States and we would go visit on occasion, and I used to think to myself, why aren't we as patriotic as the Americans? Why aren't there Canadian flags flying on every other home like there are in Rochester where we had family, or in Syracuse? Why don't I see that? Why aren't there people putting their hands over their hearts when they're singing the anthem? Why don't we have that kind of excitement around our own? Because we're so laid back, I guess.
Yeah,
but it's changed.
We don't want to be like them.
No, I'm not saying we should be like them, but I'm saying that you can't fault them for their patriotism.
Oh, I disagree. There's nothing good that has come out of nationalism. You and I could have a history class here, and we could talk about the wars that have been created from nationalism. And
what I'm saying is they exhibit their passion and their love for the United States, or did back 10, 15, 20 years ago, more so than we did here in Canada.
Well, I'm going to just say one more thing about it. I think they demonstrate their sense of superiority. Well, that's what they present more than their patriotism.
Well, okay, you're talking. I'm not getting. We're gonna go way off base here.
Where's the editor?
Enough to say,
no,
not at all. It's a frank discussion. That's fine. I mean, I'm risking sounding like I'm not a Canadian and I'm like an American bootlicker or something.
We know where you live,
I'm not.
Ted.
Yeah, and I'm not, but I'm just saying, as a young kid, I recall thinking, why don't we have flags flying in front of our house like the Americans do? That was my point.
Yeah.
Because we didn't.
We certainly did not.
In the 60s and 70s, we did not.
No.
Maybe now we do. We're certainly a lot more because the big orange orb has woken us up. But it took somebody like him to kick us in the ass to make us more patriotic. And that's true. And that may sound unpatriotic, but that's true.
That's true.
Anyway, enough of that.
Okay. How's the blood pressure?
There?
Ted?
You haven't gone away?
No, our blood pressure. We gotta go and take our pill, Ted.
No, I think we need a cocktail or something. The show itself, how much audience participation is there? Because I'm thinking that people are stirred up they are patriotic, they are stirred up, they are excited, and I'm thinking they would want to be part of that show. It's that kind of show that people want to be part of it.
Takes no prompting on my part.
I would imagine it wouldn't.
No. In fact, at the Horseshoe, anyone who was there will tell you that was the loudest. You can be at Scotiabank Arena and you can hear some people sing it, but you've never heard it like this. Sean leads everybody, in the national anthem, and but what's fascinating about the show is, depending on where we are in the song we sing. For example, we're in, we play Charlottetown once a year, or we used to, and we go in there, and I wouldn't even have to sing But the Spot. I just go, and the audience would just finish it. And we made a joke of it, Ted, but it was true. And so that's the kind of audience participation that we have. And this year, I have some merchandise or gifts that the family has given me over the years, and I'm going to give them away at the concerts to the person in the room that is dressed most outlandishly as a Canadian. So we'll see how that goes. I've never done that before.
The description and the history behind the name Stompin Tom Connors is a fascinating one, which Sean Conlon does a great routine around.
Yeah, you heard the one I put it online about, and I won't repeat it, but I don't know if he'll do that again, but he does tell a kind of he's the books that he's written are fantasy. So he has that kind of an imagination, and his humor takes on a fantasy type. It goes in a fantasy angle every once in a while. It's quite good. I mean, the story is that he was making a hole in the carpet on stage in a hotel, and the bartender, or the owner, was getting angry because he had to keep replacing the carpet. So Tom bought a piece of plywood, and some guy in Peterborough at the Prince George Hotel started calling him Stompin Tom, and the damn thing sticked. The name sticked, and next thing you know, he's got his own TV show on the CBC. That's all it takes, Ted, to get your own TV show.
But he did travel with a piece of wood that he brought on stage.
You'll love this story too. My very first tour with him in '90, when I was working for the promoter, one of my jobs, and I discovered early on that the board was a valued piece of merchandise, and we were in I think it was Walkerton, and Tom left the station. He forgot to take the board with him, and somebody came running up and grabbed the board from the stage.
Oh,
so
for sure.
It then became my job at the end of every show to grab the board and stick it in the truck, locked up. We had to lock it up in the truck. At the end of the tour, we auctioned it off for $5,000 or something.
You were the chairman of the board.
I was I was chairman of the board.
The tour began in September out in Terrace, BC, and moved into the province of Ontario in November. By the time this thing drops and people start listening to it, you're going to be in Meaford, February 5th and February 6th, in Lindsay at the Academy Theatre, and that's a special kind of a show, but it's a different show than his actual birthday show, which takes place at the Horseshoe. Tell me the difference.
Well, the Lindsay show, so there's a fellow that worked for Dean Cameron, who was the record executive who lured Tom back and bought his catalog. And really, when Tom got back on the road in 1990, Dean Cameron was an important part of that.
Sure.
And his right-hand man at the time was David McMillan. So David is retired, has been living in Lindsay for the last 5 years, and is on the board of directors at the Flato Academy Theatre. So he and I got together 2 or 3 months ago, and we decided, well, let's do a 90th birthday party at this beautiful theatre in Lindsay, which a theatre Tom knew. Him and Tommy Hunter knew the theatre very well because they both played there many times. And that's how that came to be. So thanks to David McMillan, we're going to do a special birthday show. And I'm bringing back a couple of alumni, a Stompin Tom band alumni, to sit in and play a couple of songs with us. So it's kind of a special show.
And the show at the Horseshoe?
Well, that's we got Russell DeCarl from Prairie Oyster. He toured with us in 2019, I think. And he's going to join us to sing a couple of songs. A young Mike Kerr, I don't know if that's a name you're familiar with. It's a young guitar player, singer. This guy is Ted. He's on his way to the top. This kid, he's unbelievable player. So I've invited him to come and sing a couple of songs. And Meredith Moon, who's Gordon Lightfoot's daughter, she too is going to come and sing a couple of songs. She was at the show actually that we did 10 years ago with her dad. She was there with her dad when he got up, and I didn't meet her at that time. I'm going to meet her for the first time at our show. But yeah, so it's going to be the Horseshoe, and we're going to have a cake. Ted, come on. He's going to be 90. Cake. We need a cake. And there's going to be a big picture of Tom on the cake. So, yeah.
Sounds good to me.
Darn right.
If people want to book, and they should book in advance, buy tickets, where would they go? Where would you suggest?
Well, all of the ticket links are on my webpage at whiskeyjackmusic.com. But if you know the internet, all you have to do is punch in whatever that @ sign is. What do you call that? The
A with the sign. I don't know.
The A with a circle around it?
Yes, just
okay.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
yeah.
@Banjo Dunk. That'll take you to all of our wonderful websites. And so @Banjo Dunk will take you to, and if not, just call the Horseshoe. Ben at the Horseshoe will help you out.
Good stuff. Yeah, always a pleasure chatting with you. This is going to be some wonderful evenings in ahead of us, and for those people who have not had the privilege of seeing Whiskey Jack and appreciating the music and the great talent that Stompin Tom was, here's your opportunity. Take advantage of it. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Ted. It's always a pleasure.
My pleasure. That'll do it for another week. Thank you all for tuning in. Go to our website. We have one as well. It's tedwoloshyn.ca. We don't got an at. An at's for something else. It's www.tedwoloshyn.ca. You can check out some of our past episodes. Leave your comments and your thoughts as well. And don't forget, if you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe. It's absolutely free. Even Duncan's subscribe. Just like that. Because it didn't cost anything. That's why. And also, thanks to Tom at Tom's Place for making this program possible. 190 Baldwin in the heart of Kensington Market. That's where you'll find the best clothing at the most incredible prices. And when you're online, and Paul Gatt, by the way, is our producer. Thank you, Paul, for putting up with all the edits that we made you do this week. And while you're online, fill out your organ and tissue donation card. You could change or even save a life. Have a great one.
Shirt.